In the days when the judges ruled Israel, a famine swept across the land, and the fields of Bethlehem in Judah lay barren and cracked. A man named Elimelech, an Ephrathite of Bethlehem, gathered his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, and journeyed east to the country of Moab to survive. But Moab, though it offered grain, also offered grief. There Elimelech died, and Naomi was left a widow in a foreign land with 2 sons to raise. In time, the young men married Moabite women. Mahlon took Ruth, and Chilion took Orpah. And for a season, there was laughter again in Naomi's household. Then sorrow returned like a shadow that would not lift. Both Mahlon and Chilion died, and Naomi was left without her husband and without her sons. 3 widows now stood together in a house emptied of its men, an aging Israelite and 2 daughters of Moab, bound by love and bound by loss. Ruth was a daughter of Moab, a people long hostile to Israel. Yet she married Mahlon and learned the godly ways of his household, their prayers, and their covenant God. The pain was sharp and personal. The husband who had taught her tenderness was gone, and no child carried his name. Ruth had given her heart to Israel's God and to Israel's son, and now that son lay cold beneath Moabite soil. Word reached Naomi that the Lord had visited his people in Bethlehem and given them grain once more. So she rose to return home, and Ruth and Orpah set out on the road with her, their hearts heavy and their faces turned toward Judah. On the road, Naomi turned to Ruth and Orpah and spoke without pretense. "Go back, my daughters, each to your mother's house. I have no more sons to give you. The Lord's hand has gone out against me." Her grief was honest and unhidden. Orpah, tender-hearted and torn, loved Naomi truly, yet the pull of home, of her own people and her own gods, was strong. At last, she kissed her mother-in-law farewell and turned back toward Moab. Her choice was not cruelty. It was simply the road most would have taken. But Ruth clung to Naomi and would not let go. When Naomi urged her, "Look, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go with her." Then Ruth spoke the words that would echo through generations, her voice trembling and fierce. "Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you," she declared. "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die," she vowed, her voice trembling with resolve, "and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." This was the turning of her soul, a Moabite woman binding herself forever to the God of Israel. When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined, she said no more. The 2 women walked on together until they came to Bethlehem, and the whole town stirred at their arrival. "Can this be Naomi?" the women asked, but she answered, "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me back empty." But Naomi answered out of the depth of her sorrow, "Do not call me Naomi," which means pleasant. "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." So they returned at the beginning of the barley harvest, when the fields were ripe. Hunger does not wait for grief to end. Ruth went out to glean in the fields, gathering the leftover grain the law allowed the poor and the stranger. She bent her back beneath the sun, a Moabite widow stooping among Israel's harvesters. The hard work was her only offering. She did not beg or complain, but from dawn she gathered, asking only to follow the reapers and take what fell. Her hands blistered, yet she labored for Naomi, that the old woman might eat and live. By the unseen ordering of providence, the field belonged to Boaz, a kinsman of Naomi's dead husband. He was a man of standing, righteous and upright, who feared the Lord and dealt honestly with all who served beneath his hand. Boaz came and saw the foreign woman gleaning, and he asked who she was. His servants told him she was the Moabite who returned with Naomi, who had worked steadily from morning with scarcely any rest. Her faithfulness had already become known. Boaz spoke to her with unexpected kindness. "Stay here in my field and keep close to my young women. I have charged the men not to touch you. When you are thirsty, drink from what they have drawn." A stranger was shown shelter and honor. Ruth fell on her face before him. "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" The word she used was grace, unearned and undeserved. She knew she had no claim, and yet kindness had found her out. Boaz answered that he had heard all she had done for Naomi, how she left father and mother and her native land to come to a people she did not know. "May the Lord repay you, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Those words pierced her deeply. She had come to take refuge beneath the wings of Israel's God, and now his care reached her through a righteous man's hand. She ate until she was satisfied and carried what remained home to Naomi. Naomi's eyes lit when she saw the grain and heard the name of Boaz, and the bitter woman tasted hope again. "He is a near kinsman," she said, "one of our redeemers." In the wreckage of her loss, she began to see a hidden mercy. Naomi was wise even in grief, and she set herself to plan. The name of Elimelech and the land that was his must not perish. There was a law of redemption in Israel, and Boaz was a man who might lift the fallen house from the dust. By Naomi's counsel, Ruth went at night to the threshing floor where Boaz slept and lay at his feet and asked him to spread his cloak over her, for he was a redeemer. It was a bold and trembling appeal to covenant and to mercy. Boaz blessed her for not running after younger men. "Do not fear," he said. "I will do all you ask, but there is a redeemer nearer than I." Even his desire bowed to righteousness. He would not seize what was not yet his to take. So Ruth waited, her future hanging on the choice of a nearer kinsman whose face she did not know. The man held the first right to redeem the land, and with it the widow. Her hope and her name rested in hands she could not move. At the city gate, Boaz met the nearer kinsman before the elders. The land the man would gladly take, but told that redeeming it meant marrying Ruth to raise the dead man's name, he drew back. "I cannot," he said, "lest I ruin my inheritance." The nearer redeemer refused, unwilling to bind his name to a widow and a foreigner, for the cost to himself was too great. His refusal grieved the hopeful hearts, yet by it the door swung open. He removed his sandal and walked away, unnamed forever. Then Boaz redeemed all that was Elimelech's and took Ruth to be his wife, before the elders and all the people. The household that death had emptied was filled again. The Moabite widow who owned nothing was given a name, a home, and covenant love. Ruth bore a son, Obed, and Naomi held him to her breast, no longer bitter but blessed. From that child came Jesse, and from Jesse came David the king. And from that line, in the fullness of time, came the Redeemer of all, in whom every empty hand is filled.